Hey, hello, welcome all. So today we are here to talk about Sitecore headless architecture. So far as the topic goes, we decided to pick up on Experience Edge product of Sitecore along with GraphQL and Vercel. Without ado, we will quickly get started with introducing today's presenters. So myself, Debapratim Bhattacharya, I work as a lead software engineer with EPAM. I have around 13 plus years of experience working on web-based technologies, typically using .NET and Sitecore. I have over 10 plus years of experience working on Sitecore CMS. I have also had hands-on experience working with Content Hub as another product of Sitecore. Yep. I would like now Gustavo to introduce himself.
Okay, thank you, Deb. Hello, everyone. Yes, again, so my name is Gustavo. I have been working for IPA over the past 4 years. I also have been working with technology over the past 10 years, mostly with .NET and Sitecore in domain areas like insurance, pension funds, and e-commerce. And yes, it's been a pleasure for me to present about Experience Edge together with my friend Deb. So back to you, Deb.
Thanks, Gustavo. Okay, without ado, let's get started with the content of today's presentation. So if you see what we are going to talk about is first we are going to have an introduction with the Sitecore Experience Edge product. What is the feature and the problems that it is trying to solve. Thereon, we will have a quick introduction to GraphQL as GraphQL is the key technology that is driving the Experience Edge APIs. Um, After that, we will move on with Experience Edge architecture. We will have a quick peek on the architecture for Experience Edge in the XM solutions typically. Then we will have a introduction to Vercel. Vercel is known to be the preferred cloud platform provider for any React or Next.js based applications running with Sitecore CMS. Um, After that, we will touch upon the benefits and limitations for the Experience Edge. We will talk in detail about the benefits and limitations around XM. Uh, Post that, we will do the most awaited part, which is the demo. So Gus will be taking it over in the demo session. And after that, we will have a definitely a Q&A session. So we would love to hear questions from your end around this particular topic. Okay. So what is Sitecore Experience Edge? So Sitecore Experience Edge is basically a set of APIs that helps to drive or that helps to serve headless content to different platforms. So basically, we can use these APIs to serve content on multiple devices and different channels. So the most important factor that this Experience Edge gives you is a fast and I would say fast and very omni present content across all the different channels. The compatible products with Experience Edge are Sitecore XM, XM Cloud, Content Hub, and Content Hub 1. Typically, talking about the type of data that Experience Edge holds for an XM solution is it holds the items information, which is basically which helps you in doing the content tree traversal. Secondly, it consists of a static snapshot of the layout service output. So whatever presentations we configure, uh, Experience Edge keeps a static snapshot of the JSON data that is part of the layout service output. And the other thing is it supports Boolean queries. So basically, if there is any sort of a component that requires some Boolean queries to return all the navigation items or things like that, it is able to serve all those sort of content as well. Now, we know that Experience Edge is capable of giving us content across all these three different areas, but what is that is driving the Experience Edge to deliver these content, and that's where GraphQL comes into the picture. So GraphQL is nothing but a API-based query language, which helps in reducing the round trips that would be associated with a traditional REST-based API. So if we are looking to fetch or query a certain data with a REST-based API, the usual way that would happen is you get the data by making a first call, bulk of the data, and then you run another call to basically filter out that data. And that's basically two round trips to get a single set of data that we are asking for. And that's where GraphQL comes into the picture. So with a GraphQL, you can define a specific query. And then in your initial request to get the data, you can specify that query. That query gets executed on a predefined schema, and that query, when run on that predefined schema, will then search for the data and give you the predictable result. So basically that connects the three pieces that you see here, which is you first define your schema. Thereon, you write your query that will execute on that particular schema. And when you execute that query, you get the predictable result because you get to define what is the output format in which you want the results back. We will head on to the Experience Edge XM architecture. Now, as you see in a Experience Edge XM architecture, to a content management, I would say to a content management server, you would see a specific connector being installed as well. So that is the Experience Edge connector. The job of this Experience Edge connector is to expose the Experience Edge endpoint as a publishing target, and it also handles the entire publishing process that is associated to pushing items from the CMS master database to the Experience Edge publishing target. So typically when we trigger a publish operation on a CMS to the Experience Edge target, what the Experience Edge connector does is it creates a context of publishing context wherein it gets the information about items, layout snapshot, and media. And then it pushes all these data into the Experience Edge platform using the GraphQL schema that has defined by Sitecore. Once the data is there in the Experience Edge platform, the client browsers will no longer depend on any other content delivery instance to retrieve their content. So client browsers can then interact directly with the Experience Edge delivery platform to fetch the item and layout specific data using GraphQL delivery endpoint. And it can also get the media request from the CDN that's being exposed as part of the Experience Edge delivery platform. Okay. We will now talk about the different APIs that we have in an Experience Edge solution. So when we are connecting to an Experience Edge platform, we are actually having two primary APIs for development and production needs. So for development purpose, we are using the preview API. Now, when you install the XM connector, it automatically has the dependent library that takes care of having the preview API set up in your CMS instance, and it is hosted within the same CMS instance where you have installed the XM connector. This preview API basically exposes the same GraphQL API that we have in the production endpoint, which is the delivery API, just that it is running in the context of the master data. So in the development process, whenever you make any changes you want to test, you would be always using the preview API. Now, once you publish this master data to the Experience Edge endpoint, it becomes available from the Delivery API. So Delivery API is the very performant data because when you push it to Experience Edge, all the data is there cached, and then this Delivery API is running all the GraphQL queries on that cached data, which makes it really fast. We will not talk in detail about the other two APIs, which is the token API and the admin API. Just I have given a reference that these APIs are to manage the other Experience Edge capabilities with respect to creating the API keys for the delivery endpoint and certain other administrative aspects like clearing some caches, creating some webhooks on the Experience Edge. But yeah, in case you have any questions related to these endpoints, feel free to reach me out in the Q&A session. Okay, so again, I just wanted to keep this slide to give a understanding that how Experience Edge product works for different Sitecore products. We don't want to go into the details around the Content Hub architecture, but I have just kept this for reference purpose, as Experience Edge was initially designed for the Content Hub platform, and thereon it was adapted in the XM platform. So yeah, again, feel free to reach me out if you have any questions around this in the Q&A session. I will be happy to address them. Okay, now let's understand what is Vercel. So Vercel is a cloud platform provider, and it's basically a preferred cloud platform provider for any static and dynamic sites that is um, being used for serving as the content delivery platform um, for Sitecore based websites using React or Next.js. Now, the it offers different capabilities like serverless deployments. It's a very seamless Git integration, and it also gives you analytics and insights. The one key feature I would call out is the ease of spinning up a new CD instance for your own development and testing purpose. That's also pretty much very easy, and that's why we thought we would use Vercel in our demo. Okay, Experience Edge. Now, for the XM data flow, and it's very important to understand how a data flows when we are using this particular architecture. So let's talk about the content delivery. So what's happening when a user is requesting a page? The request is initially passed on to the Vercel front-end app that we have hosted in the Vercel. The app will then, based on the page request, will try to figure out what all components it needs to render. And those individual components will then trigger out the GraphQL API request to the Experience Edge endpoint. Once Experience Edge endpoint receives that those GraphQL requests, it will then query the cached data and send the JSON response back. The JSON response is then binded to the markup based on the React code or any other preferred JS framework that we are using, and then the generated HTML is sent back. Now, this entire process, in case of a static site generated website, would happen in the build time. So when an application is being built, it would make these API calls for the different web pages that are part of the static site. And once all these responses are created, all those markups will then be cached. So Now, for a static site, whenever someone requests the page, it will check whether already a cached page exists. If it does, it will serve it from there. If not, it will repeat this content delivery process. Now, coming to the publish process, this is where I think the connector plays a very key role in doing, I would say, in heavy lifting all the work that is required for an experience edge endpoint. So whenever we trigger a publish operation, the connector will create a publish context. It's like a more like a pipeline. And then within that pipeline, there will be call initially to the experience edge to define, identify all the items that require to be published. And what experience edge will then do is that it will send out all the dependent items that are required to be published. Once we get those dependent items, the connector will start flattening out the dynamic content. So basically, if I've requested a publish, which is supposed to publish one item, it will figure out that there are 5 or 6 dependent items. And then for those 5 and 6 dependent items, what are the different content that is required to be published? It will flatten it out into one single, I would say, document based on the GraphQL schema. And once those uh, documents are prepared, it will then send out the layout snapshots, media, and the item data to the experience edge. And in the experience edge, it will result in the cache creation. That cache creation acknowledgement will be sent back to the connector. The connector will then acknowledge that as a publish end event. Hey, so now let's talk about what is the difference between the headless service and an experience edge. So essentially, experience edge is augmenting the Sitecore headless services. Its intent is not to replace it, but utilize it to serve the content. The headless service outputs are pushed into the experience edge and then cached. So which makes the I would say, which makes the API responses much faster than the layout service response, and is very much helpful when we are trying to run multiple omni-channel platforms using the same content. Okay. Um, we will quickly touch upon these benefits and limitations. So typically, as we have spoken earlier as well, what benefits does Experience Edge bring? It's fast, globally replicated content delivery. So it's basically acts as a content as a service. You get the same set of content for different channels. So that's one key advantage. It's very helpful for an SSG and an SSR based web apps, as you need you get very fast access to the content. Now coming to the limitations, certainly one big limitation as a developer I see is the GraphQL schema is read only. So you basically don't have the control on the GraphQL schema that has been defined by Sitecore. Few other limitations is like you cannot have a dynamic output from the layout service. So although you have the layout service data, you cannot get a varied layout service response based on user or any other query parameters. So yeah, apart from that, I have listed down a couple of other limitations, and a similar documentation can be found in Sitecore's official documentation as well. So yeah, feel free to reach me out if you have any queries on these limitations or benefits. Okay, now comes the most important part, which is the demo. And here I will hand over the session to Gus. Over to you, Gus. Thanks.
Thank you, Deb. So, yes, giving continuity to this presentation, we'll make a demonstration about how to connect Sitecore Experience Edge to a front-end application, in this case, that will be built using Next.js. So, just to explain how this demonstration will be conducted, there will be two phases. The first one will simulate a development environment where We will show how to connect your application, your front-end application to Sitecore experience management. And the second one, uh, showing how this application will behave in production environment, showing how this front-end app will be connected to Experience Edge, handling this cached information. Okay, so let me share my screen and giving you a overall about the main important topics that will be approached concerning to the infrastructure. So we will have key pieces that will be part of this integration. The first one is the Sitecore experience management, working as a backend solution that will store our data and work as a headless API for our contact. The second one will be the front-end application. It will be a Next.js app uh, that will be responsible to connect to Sitecore's. I'm sorry, to connect to Sitecore Experience Management and fetch this information. The third point will be the Vercel hosting that will be responsible to host our front-end application simulating the production environment. And the fourth and most important part for this presentation will be Sitecore Experience Edge, that, as I said before, will work as a cache layer that will have storage a portion of data from our layout service. Okay, so let's move to the first part of this topic. To have our Sitecore instance running, instead of building my own instance from the ground, I will use the portal Sitecore demo that allows you to build any instance of Sitecore product that you want to create your own MVP or to create some demonstration, understand how this product works. And I totally recommend that for you guys that want to take a time to learn more about Sitecore products. Okay, so I will create an instance on Experience Manager and selecting the Experience Edge product. Just a briefly reminder that to have access to the portal, you need to log with your Sitecore partners account. So once you're logged, you can navigate to get a demo option, select the options mentioned before, and you end up here when you start to creating your instance. For our case, I'll give a name like Experience Edge demo number 2. I will choose the UK West region and hit on the summary. Here I can have the whole information for our new instance and we'll click on the deploy. Well, the deployment takes around 30 to 40 minutes and it will not have to wait that longer to have it running, as I already have a version up and running here that you can access and show you how this will works. So I will just access my content management service here. And once I have it, I can, oh, I'm sorry. Okay. Again, so once I have it, I can take my username and password, go to the launch page and access the Sitecore instance itself. So once I'm here, let me go to the content editor. And one important part of this demonstration is to have the front end connected to the back end. How this is done? Well, as we are dealing with a headless application using Next.js, we'll create an API key. On our case, it's already created. It's located on Settings, Services, API Keys. Here we have the headless API key already configured with the origins and allowed controllers. And important fact, we need to have this headless with this item ID as the key for access our content management instance. Okay, once I have that, I can just come to my front end application. It was, as said earlier, developed using Next.js. And during our configuration, there are key important values that need to be configured so JSS can connect properly to our Sitecore instance. The first one, as mentioned earlier, is the API key that we already have here. As you can check, is the same key as I mentioned earlier as a headless API key. This key allows the front-end application to connect with Sitecore. So it knows, it has the secret that allow us to access this instance. The next important configuration is the deployment secret, because it helps us to identify from each website inside of Sitecore we are about to deploy our front-end information. And of course, it's also important to highlight the deploy URL so we know where our server is located, and the layout service host. Again, when we want to connect to our preview API, we need to know where the layout service will be hosted so we can have this information available. Okay, so moving to the next part, I will just run in the terminal. Just yes, start connected. So the application is being started now and will be available for check in a few minutes. So just recapping, so far, what do we have it here? We have our CMS instance configured, and we have our front-end application created locally. But you might ask me, okay, Gustavo, what about Experience Edge? So to prove you that our instance, it's already connected to Experience Edge, I can come here to the content side, just hit one of these items to publish, and when I decide to publish this item, I have the option Experience Edge here available. So this information is already being published to the targets that we want. So Experience Edge already has a cache of our data as soon as I hit the button publish. So we'll let this for later once I have all the scope ready, but just to let you know, our Sitecore instance is already connected to Experience Edge. So moving back to our front-end application, we can see that it's built and is already running. Let me just hit the local environment. As you can see, the page is running. I can come back here to the editor and change some information that will be replicated as usual. So let me just remove all this stuff here, save it, come back to the page, refresh it, and as you can see, the change is just instantly. So our front end is already connected to the back end. Okay, so moving to the next topic. Well, we know that we have our development environment set up and running. Now it's time to set up our production environment. So how we are able to do that? To simulate our production servers, we will host our application on Vercel. So in order to do that, it's necessary to take a few steps. The first one is to create on your own account on Vercel.com. I already have mine created, and as you can see on this dashboard, I even already have a demo application running on Sitecore. Okay. Well, once I have the application, once I have my account created, I will install the npm package for Vercel globally on my computer, which I already have. And in the next step, I'll just deploy my application that's locally configured to the Vercel. So let me just come back to my terminal here. I will stop the application for a while and just run Vercel. Let me just take a few steps before. Okay, as this application was already connected, let me just remove all the details that was previously used. So you can guarantee that you can just set up a fresh application on Vercel. Okay, so coming back to our command line, so I just hit Vercel. It asks me if I want to set up and deploy this folder. Yes, I want to do that. To which scope should I want to deploy? For Gustavo's projects? Yes. Link to existing projects? No. We are creating a new project from the scratch. and my new project will be Experience Edge demo number 2. Okay. Okay, in which directory my code should be located? It's in the root directory as mentioned, and the project's being already set. It's asking me if I want to modify the setting. No, it's everything fine for me now. And now the front-end application is being deployed to Vercel. So as you can already see here, the application is being already created, and it will be available for us to investigate and see how it's working in a few minutes. Okay, all right. So just returning to this point where I can show you that we have 3 parts already working and functional here. Okay, we have our CMS working up and running. It's already connected to Experience Edge, as I showed you earlier. We have the front end application up and running locally, and now you are deploying this application to Vercel. And once this application is up, our next step is to configure the application to connect to Experience Edge, do the deployments, and check if the data will be replicated properly. Okay, so let's see how is the progress. It's still building. So we have some time as well to check how is the deployment going for our virtual machine for Sitecore. Well, this is still happening here. And one thing that I didn't mention earlier, but of course it's also possible to check how the deployment is going, and just looking through the logs here. As you can see, everything is running well so far, no big problem. It's just a matter to wait a few more minutes to have this deployment on our local environment. As I mentioned earlier, guys, it takes a considerable time, so around 30 to 40 minutes. Okay. All right, so let me just go back to our terminal. And as you can see, our project is already deployed on Vercel. So let's just jump back to Vercel and see how it is now. So we have our application here deployed. And as you can see, there is even already a screenshot of the main page. So let's visit. So you can see that it's not something previously configured. It's something done just in front of you. So, but we have a problem here because our application is still not being connected to Experience Edge. The cache is not set properly yet. So let's just do the following. We'll just navigate back to our panel of portal sitecore go to the instance that is already configured and connected to the front-end application, and navigate here to grab some important information. Okay, regarding the Edge tenant, we need to take the API key. This API key will be set on our application. So just come here, paste the key, go back to our application, and copy this delivery API path. Okay, just friendly reminder, it's not this path using the end of IDE. You should use this path using the slash v1. Okay, so once I get this information, I can just put it here on the GraphQL endpoint. And our application is already configured to access Sitecore Experience Edge. So if I go to the terminal here and run our application, it will be up in a few seconds. We'll be able from locally access our Experience Edge. Of course, this is not the best scenario recommended because Experience Edge it's meant to be a CD server. So it's mostly aimed to be used by our production machines. But of course, it's also possible to have this access here and access this information. So page is refreshing. Let me just hit enter here again. It should be ready in a few seconds. Let's see. Okay, is everything here? Everything here is fine on the terminal, so the page is not broken. And as you can see, we have the old data, the data that is already cached on Experience Edge. Okay, so what we will do now, we will deploy our application to Vercel, and after that, doing a new deployment from our CM instance to Experience Edge and see the change being replicated both on development environment, as you can see, because it's connected to Experience Edge, and in production environment. Okay, so let's just hit Vercel. Uh, I think it's slash dash prod. Okay, that's right. The deployment is happening. It will just take a few minutes until all the configurations are set and replicated on our production environment. And again, bringing to you, we are almost finished here. So we have our Vercel app configured and the application is deployed. In a few minutes, this application will be connected to Experience Edge. We already have our CMS application that is connected to Experience Edge, and we have our front-end application that is connected either with Sitecore CM instance and as well with the Vercel host service. So, okay, the deployment is taking a little time, but it will be ready soon. Bringing again, we can check that the deployment on our second machine it's in fact completed. So everything running fine. If I want, I can just hit this button and get access to the login page. So if I want, I can just log in and put my data here and copy the password and hit. So everything is fine and configured in a matter of a few minutes. That's great. So coming back to our deployment, okay, it's already there. So if I go back to our Vercel application, I can just refresh the page. And yes, we have the data as cached previously, and again proving that our application on Vercel is connected to Experience Edge. So let's just make a small change here on our instance and this next JS. So this data here, I will just publish this item again. Okay, let me just publish one level upper, so everything will be published together. Okay, I just choose Experience Edge, that's our publishing target. Yes, I'm sure of that. Just do the publishing for me. And in a matter of seconds, we will have our data replicated to Experience Edge, and we can just prove that accessing our page. So again, everything is basically connected now. And we have our front end hosted on Vercel connecting to Experience Edge, our backend application doing deployments to our Experience Edge instance without any further problem, and our front-end application using JSS, using a headless approach deployed on Vercel and doing all the life cycle that is expected for this scenario. So as you can see, the publishing is already happening and will be ready in a matter of some seconds. Of course, you can always do questions after the presentation. We are open to answer all the questions that you might have. Okay, so as you can see, the deployment is already done. And going back to our Vercel instance and refreshing it, it's loaded, but the information is not fresh yet. Of course, it takes a few seconds until the cache is refreshed with our information. So a little more of patience. And yes, that's there. We have our application upgraded straight from Experience Add Cache. So I think that's all from my side now. I have all my content here up and running. And I'm back to you, Deb. Thank you for your time.